what can be done to reverse this situation? And it's not going to be overnight, but realistically, what what can be done there? And the next question, what can we do from here? Because this has gone worldwide. Even like there's people drawing analogies to the Palestinian issues. I've seen pictures of Israeli soldiers with their knees on Palestinians, saying, we know this happens, and we can't identify. So it's hit a nerve around the world, and people want to do something. All right. So I think the first question: what can you guys over there do? And what can we over here do to help you? So that's the two. And Hasan, that's going to come to you after he's finished, inshallah.
Bismillah. All right. So, Bismillah. So, here's something I think that is interesting. It's an interesting question. And first, I'm going to say this. I want everyone to understand, like, about myself. I'm not from the hood. Okay. I lived in the white suburban areas where my family was probably the only black family in the neighborhood. Or we were one of maybe 3 or maybe 4 families in some cases, right? So, like, for people who kind of grew up, as Imam Hasan was just talking about, how some white people have never had any kind of interaction with another group of people outside of themselves. Well, there are black people in the same boat, because there's some people who black people live in black neighborhoods, or predominantly black neighborhoods. They don't know what it's like to be around white people. Even my own kids, had they not traveled to places like Yemen and Kuwait, they never would have known what it's like to be around the people, because we've always kind of had them in predominantly black neighborhoods, and they went to predominantly black schools, high schools. It wasn't, my oldest son didn't really have an interaction with white people until he went to outside, seeing a few white Muslims here and there. Really didn't have a real serious interaction with white people until he got into university. And his roommate was white. And so, yeah, that was a whole eye-awakening experience for him. So I'm saying that to say that we have to become broader, right? And as far as here in America is concerned, you're not going to end hate. I just don't believe that, because people are always going to find a reason to hate. You look at a place like, either in the UK, Scotland, Ireland, right? Even England, right? Just amongst white people, they got problems with people who are ginger. Why do you have a problem with a redheaded person? What's wrong with a redheaded person? I think redheaded people are beautiful, actually. That's me personally, right? There's beauty in that fiery red hair. I like that. But why is it that white people have a problem with their own people? The Indians, Pakistanis. You get a dark-skinned Pakistani, have them try and marry a light-skinned Pakistani woman. Not going to happen. Or very rare. Likewise within the Indian community, because the caste system is too strong. Why is that? Why is it that you have these levels? Why do you have these problems amongst Arabs? You're Yemeni? Well, you from the north or from the south? Because the southern ones are darker than the northern ones, right? You go into Saudi Arabia, they think their doo-doo doesn't stink. Amongst all the other Arabs, I don't care where you come from, you're part of the Khalij, oh man, that's it. You're from the Gulf? Oh, that means money. It means power, it means status. So when you come into places like Syria or Jordan, you're like, you think you're king. And you're not. So the thing is about the issue of trying to feel the disease in the heart that deals with people wanting to be better than other people is something that will probably always exist. Because we have not, as a spiritual people, we have, and I'm talking about everybody, Bani Adam, we have not renounced the dunya. We're not people of the hereafter. And for what it's worth, we're not people completely of Allah. Because if we were people of Allah, then we would recognize that your color makes no difference. On the day of judgment, Allah, and nowhere in my studies, correct me if I'm wrong, but nowhere in my studies have I read one hadith or came across one ayah of Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask us, how great of a black guy were you? How great of a white person were you? How great of an Arab, Pakistani, Indian, Asian person, whatever. Allah's not going to ask you how great you were as far as how well you treated your own people. That's not going to be a question. Allah's looking at you in terms of how well you were as a servant and how did you serve his creation. And then we are sent here as vicegerents, meaning we're governors on this planet to take care of the people who can't take care of themselves and people who need assistance. That's what this deen is about, helping people to elevate and become higher and stronger. So we haven't really gathered that. Now, having said that, though, it still doesn't mean we don't try. And we do need to try. And part of that, based on what Imam Hasan was just talking about, is we have to have dialogue. One, we have to be able to talk to each other and not be afraid to ask questions because we're worried about being offensive. And in the same breath, we can't worry about being offended when we're asked certain questions, right? Especially if they're being sincere. Now, if a person's just being a jerk, you're just being an asshole, well, that's something different. But if you're being someone that is genuine in your questioning, well, there's no harm there, right? That's another thing. We have to be able to talk and then have the hard conversations and understand that some things you're just not going to know the answers for, and not be afraid to say, I don't know. And then also recognize that you only come from your own personal experience. And everyone's experience is different, and it's not, and we cannot belittle another person's experience. Like a white person grew up in the neighborhood and it's like, oh, the police are great, man. They do all these wonderful things. But you've never been stopped by the police before. You've never been harassed by the police before. I have. I mean, me personally, I have.
Could you shed some light, give us an example before you continue?
I mean, it's just that. I mean, I'm walking down the street one time in my suburban neighborhood, and I used to go to an inner city school, though. I didn't go to school in the suburbs at that time. Police comes riding by, jumps out the car. Hey, what are you doing here? And looking like he was angry. What are you doing here? I said, I live here. Where do you live? I told him where I lived. He was like, well, why are you not in school? I mean, alhamdulillah, in that particular situation, it wasn't so bad. I was like, I don't go to school here. I go to school in the city. We're on a break right now. He said a few choice things and then got in the car and left. Alhamdulillah, that was easy. But I've had situations where I've had to get on my hands and knees I don't want to talk about. I've had to get down on the ground. I've been handcuffed. I've been put in the backseat of a car, thrown in the backseat of a car. Those things have happened. So my thing is that it's not easy, but again, there has to be a conversation. In our country too, we have to get to a point where white people have to stop trying to ignore what's happening. And the white people have to also take accountability for their people.
Why do you think that hasn't happened?
Because it's not in their faces. I mean, it's like, why do we, why is it that, there was like no concern about drugs, in the black community for long, people dying of drugs and losing their lives and families and everything else due to drugs in the black community, but it wasn't a problem until it hit the white community. In other words, when it affected them, that's when they got involved. So as long as it's not affecting you, there's no reason for you to be involved. But my thing is, as a human being, this should affect you. Just from a simple point of humanity, this should affect you. And it should be something that causes you to say this is wrong and be able to speak out that when you see wrong. Now, to answer the last question, what can you do? All right. Well, the first thing we were told by the Prophet ﷺ that if you see a wrong, right, you change it with your hand. You get out there and do something, right? And if you can't do that, change it with your tongue. And if you can't do that, then you hate it in your heart, and that's the weakest form of iman. So in other words, speaking out and acting and trying to deter what is wrong is an act of iman, right? So that being the case, your iman is being tested. Our iman is being tested right now. So what do? How do we speak out against this? Because many of us can't do anything with our hands. Okay, in this particular case, you can't go out and protest. Maybe you can send a message via social media or something like that and say, I'm not for this. Okay, that's cool. But sometimes I'm afraid that people are doing that just to be cool. You know, make you seem like they're down, you know, for the cause. I'm an activist. Ooh, I'm a social media activist. Yeah. Well, let me tell you one thing that you guys can really start doing and stop doing, and that is perpetuating the stereotypes. What do I mean by that? Well, you know, when I was in England one time, I was doing a 12-day tour with a particular Islamic group there doing fundraising. And when I was riding around, I was with two Arab brothers from Manchester, and one Libyan and one Egyptian. And when we were riding around, the Egyptian brother wanted to like, hey man, bro, you know, we're gonna do this for show. You know what I'm saying, man? Ha ha. And he thought that was cool. So he'd been watching all the rap videos and watching reality television programs. And, you know, I said, why are you talking like this? This is my American accent, brother. Yeah, man, because we got to be down. You know what it is? You know what I'm saying? I'm going to be straight, you know, and talking like this. I'm like, bro, do you hear me talking like that? Do you hear me talking like that? No. I said, so why are you talking to me like that? This is my American accent, brother. This is not something I'm putting on for you. This is how I talk each and every day. So what makes you think that I talk like that? And what are you saying about Americans, specifically Black Americans? Because I asked the question, if I were Sheikh Yahya Rodas, right, or one of our beloved white scholars, Muslim scholars here in America, I asked, would you talk to him like that in your American accent? He said, no. I said, so what makes you think you can talk to me like that? So you can listen to all that rap music and you want to talk like the rappers and how you see them in the videos and how you see them in interviews and how you see them in the movies and all these things and you know, the grills and all this business, and you want to talk and act like you hard amongst your friends and get your little pants sagging and you think that's cool. Rapping, what Dave Chappelle say, you know, you sitting in the car rapping the songs, and when they get to the nigger part, you're like, nigger, and all this business because you think it's cool. It's not. In fact, it's downright insulting. I think Imam Hasan was telling me, even in Tareem, I think it was one of the Australian brothers, came up to him and said some really out of pocket stuff because, you know, he thought it was cool because he thought he could. He thought he had permission to do that kind of stuff because it's in the rap music. It's in y'all's culture. So I can just talk to you like that because I mean, that's how you niggas are in the first place. And really felt like that. Not understanding he's being 1,000% wrong and offensive. And I told Hasan, and this is one of the things, Hasan is way more hood than I could ever be. And you see, I'm the one all riled up, and he's the one sitting all calm and cool and talking about James Baldwin and talking about these great authors and looking at this person's, his documentation and his work and his research and these documents. The difference, you see the difference already. And see, me, I would have hit that brother in the mouth. Hasan offering us some tea. See, there's a difference. I would have hit that brother in the mouth and told him to get the bleep out of my house. You would never talk to me like that. You see what I'm saying? But then too, I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm older and maybe I just gone through a lot more crap, and maybe I'm just at a boiling point with my life and the things that have happened, and I just don't have a tolerance for that. I remember being in the pool. Another Arab brother from Australia, in Tareem, I jumped in the pool and smacked the water. And he said, brother, if you weren't so black, maybe, you know, there'd be a big red spot on your back. And everybody got quiet. And I just looked. And I was getting ready to say something. One of the Habaib walked in and that just cut it all out. I couldn't say nothing. I said, Allah blessed him. Allah blessed him. Allah blessed him. And so you guys don't understand that. Or I remember in Damascus, a Pakistani brother walked up to another brother from Chicago, Imam Rami Muhammad, and patted him on top of his head. You don't pat a black man on his head. You think that's okay? Oh, your hair is so cool. Can I touch it? Oh my God. Okay. What? I'm not some. And tell me, oh, you're so exotic, man. Do you know how offensive that kind of stuff is? So you ask me, what can you do? Well, first off, put yourself in check. That's the first thing. Stop feeding and bolstering these stereotypical things. Get rid of that kind of stuff in your own life, from your own person. When you see it from the people that are in your circles of friends and family, let them know that what you're saying and doing is wrong. Let them know that this is not permissible. Let them know it's especially as Muslims. Try to, even in your own communities, try to demolish and get rid of the hierarchies of your caste system or the racism that lies within your own ethnic group, and eradicate that. And maybe that might open up the doors for you to be a little more empathetic towards other groups of people. Those kind of things are also very, very important. You got to get rid of the racism within your own people. Well, first and foremost, within your own heart. And the discrimination that lies within your heart. And then that then expands out to the people in your household. So if you got a wife or a husband and children, then you got to teach them. And then that expands from that household to your neighbors, to your parents, to your grandparents, cousins, and then the people in your friend circle. And let them know that some of their behavior is just not acceptable, and you're not going to accept it. I mean, even for myself, and I was telling you, Imam Zane, with this epidemic going on, forget the aspects of police brutality, because that's actually been going on since ever in this country. It's not new. It's just that we can catch it on video now and put it on social media. But aside from that, just this coronavirus business, right? I've had to cut off a lot of people because I've seen how reckless people are. Still wanting to run around, still trying to hang out, don't want to social distance, don't want to wear masks, don't want to keep themselves covered up properly, still trying to just live life normally. No, this is not that time. So I've already had to cut people off because you're reckless. And likewise, when you start cutting people off because of their racism, because of their prejudices, then then people have to start reevaluating certain things. That's how it begins. And that's what has to happen in my country, amongst the white community, amongst the Arab community, amongst the African community, amongst the Black American community, amongst the Latino community, amongst the Asian community. It has to happen all the way around if we really want to see change.
Barakallah fiqh. MashaAllah, I want to, it's difficult for me because the more you talk, the more questions I want to ask. And then I look at the other speaker and I go, okay, I got to bring him in, inshallah. But Sayyidi Hasan, again, the two questions, inshallah. What can you guys do over there? And what can we do over here? And one third question, if you give us an example of some of the brutality of some of the difficult situations. If you can give us one example, just to give us an insight into what you've experienced.
Okay, alhamdulillah. For one, to tell you guys what you need to do out there, I can't answer that question. That's on you guys to answer. The man is on y'all for that. But to share some opinions of what I feel we should be doing over here is, I think the Muslims at this point, we're in a state of what you can call decentralized leadership, right? Where there's not like me, I have a Jamal, I have a community, but the broader Muslim community doesn't operate in that way. And so until the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said that there's three things we'll be questioned about on Yom Kippur. He said that there will be questioned about our knowledge, we'll be questioned about our knowledge, our wealth, and our health. If a person is not actively teaching, that person should be in classes somewhere learning. If a person isn't actively physically engaged somewhere, a person should be conditioning themselves so they can answer the call when the call is given. If a person is not spending their wealth in Allah's sake, then a person should be putting their bodies where the work is being done for the people who have donated the wealth there. And this is not something I hold other people to. This is kind of a litmus test in which I measure myself by. And so one of the things that I think that as Muslims, what we should be doing here in the decentralized state is that we should be trying to acquire skill set. We should be, if that's building wealth, if that's exactly acquiring skills, if that's, building networks with other communities, so that when it is time for us to come together and, organize, that we come to the table, people not who draw the resources, but people who bring solutions and bring something to the table to benefit the whole. So I think that's what we, as individuals right now, because a lot of people are like, well, what can I do? That's what we need to be doing. That's what, if that means me working out, if that means me starting my own business, if that means me supporting this person's other business, then I'm talking about us as Muslims. And something that we can do collectively is we have to network. We need to build confederations with each other here, and we can put aside our differences and come together collectively on the things that we do agree upon, right? And look out for our own best interests. So I think, if we get along this foot by doing what, building these very institutes and things that we said are striving to pull them together to build these things that have control of our lives. Like one of my son asked me, he said, Abu, I have a lot of things that I want to do, and, I can't really figure out exactly what I want to do. This is some time back, but one of my sons said this to me. I said, son, every man has to know what he's about. Every man has to know what his focus is. And when you know what that is, then this is something that I try to do. I'm 46 years old, something that I try to do at the age that I am now. I try to, anything that's not, we can have these grandiose ideas and these lofty, things that we want to achieve and accomplish in these visions, right? But if the every single day things that we allow to preoccupy our time is not reflecting, is not going in that direction, then we just spinning our wheels, and we're going to be having these conversations, for time and time to come. So, so I told him, I said, know what it is. And alhamdulillah, he already knew what was his primary concern. But we all, as Muslims, we need to know what our primary concern is. And that's establishing Allah's rule in these lands, wherever we are. Putting Allah first and foremost, right? And doing whatever we have to do to bring that about, right? I mean, think about it. When you build schools and you're building communities, and we building our own institutes, right? What are we doing? We're actually putting a niche that belongs to Allah on this earth, right? So that's the work that we need to be busy with. And that's not no grandiose, far-fetched, far-reaching thing that we can do. That's on the ground. There's some of us who are already doing this and trying to call on others who are doing it to, so that we can assist one another. Inshallah. I hope that answer gave you.
MashaAllah. Could you give us an example, if you feel comfortable, just to give us an insight? Because for us in the UK, our police here don't, for the majority of the time, don't carry guns. But your police do, and unlike America, in which you can walk into a Walmart and find all guns, we walk into Asda or the supermarket here, and we'll find brooms and sticks and mops. We don't find the kind of things you guys do, and the right to carry arms. So it's a very different context here. I think for a lot of us here in the UK, the level of the brutality of some people within the police force, I think for a lot of us, it's lost. We don't really see it unless in the movies or when it's captured. But so if you feel comfortable, if you don't, I understand. But if you do,
let me share this. It's not really what you're asking, but I mean, it's actually what you're asking, but not in sharing a story. I remember when Philando Castro was killed, and either the day before or the day after, there was another gentleman. His name slips my mind right now, but he was killed. And I remember at the time that happened, I had went into such a depression. And this is common. This is common for us to deal with. This is common for us to go through this. And I started to go through somewhat of a depression. And, people who I'm in contact more than others, I was like, just, you're going to have to forgive me for a little bit. I'm going to go off the phone. I'm going to kind of go off the grid for a little bit and just kind of give myself some time to myself, because these things can really put you in a bad state. Like in fact, I haven't watched any of the footage of people who have died since then. because, you know, it puts me in a certain place, right? It puts me in a certain place. So I don't like, and I know many other brothers that's like that. But anyhow, and the day that this happened, the day that I, when people call, and a few people I reached out and called, I would just say, I'm gonna have to take some time off to myself. And it was the same that night. I forget the brother's name, but this is when a brother in Dallas, Texas, he went on a rampage and he killed like 5 police officers, I believe, in Texas, 4 or 5 police officers in Texas, right? And when I was sitting there watching the film, to keep it 100%, it brought me out of that funk that I was in. It brought me out of, like everybody else in the building, because I went into a store and everyone was watching the news and everybody was appalled, right? And, I'm not trying to sound like a monster, but I was looking at the thing and it brought me out of my funk. I actually, it felt like, and to explain it, right, Frederick Douglass said this. He said, because Frederick Douglass, if you read his autobiography, he talks about when he was sent to a plantation specifically for people who were trained in breaking enslaved Africans that were rebellious, that wouldn't listen, that would stare their owner in the eye or whatnot, right? And he was sent to one of these places. And he says one day he was by himself in the middle of the cotton field. And he said while he was there, the guy, whoever this guy he described him, he said he was a terrible person. There wasn't an ounce of good in him. And he said he walked up to Frederick Douglass. Unexpected, Frederick Douglass was picking cotton and it socked him in the side of his ear, right? And Frederick Douglass said he turned and he beat the brakes off that dude, right? Physically just, devoured him. And then he said, he was speaking to abolitionists and whatnot. And he says, many of you may read this and may look at this and think this is barbaric, right? He said, but only someone who has suffered the shackles of bondage can understand the liberating feeling that I felt in that moment, right? And the people can say, oh, well, how can you feel that way about it? We're not justifying anything. These are realities that we live. And so what it is when you sit there, a brother called me at the same time. I mean, it might have even been the same day. And this brother called me crying, this is a brother my age, maybe 2-3 years older than me, having a nervous breakdown, crying on the phone. And he was calling me because he witnessed the same footage that I did. And he was calling me to say, I can't take it no more. He said, I don't want to be here no more. He said, I'm calling you, Hasan, to tell you that I love you. And that's it. You're going to see it on the news. And I had to talk this brother down because he wanted to go out there and do what the brother in Dallas did. Right. And and I can honestly say, Allah knows is my witness. This ain't the only time I had to talk a brother from wanting to take that type of route. But a person can say, again, what's his name? James Baldwin say, he said to be African-American and even semi-conscious, a Negro in this society is almost to walk around in a state of rage all the time, right? So when we see it, we can relate to it. And a person said, yeah, but how can you justify? No, what do you think tyranny and oppression breeds? You think it breeds a healthy psychology? So no, I don't criticize and I don't blame and I don't fault my brothers who out here who may be demonstrating themselves in a way that we as Muslims don't. And I even can understand our young Muslims who are out there putting in work a certain type of way. I don't really even criticize them a certain way, right? But because I understand it. But I think the onus and the amana and the responsibility on us as Muslims, right, is to show what is the prophetic remedy to the social ills that we have. And
I don't want you to answer that question now because
let me say this. A person who I highly admire, right? He said this. He said, this is a person who, he's one of the pioneers. He's one of the respected brothers who done put it down. I don't know if he would want me to mention him, so I'm not gonna mention his name. But he said, people always say, what's the struggle, right? Is the struggle this? The struggle is that? He said, the struggle is nothing more than the situation that Allah puts in front of you. And the amana is on us to respond how Allah and his messenger see fit. That's the struggle, right? So it's not about me trying to, or any of us trying to fulfill some macho bravo type of, be down. No, but if you're in a situation and your expression of Islam doesn't give an answer to the things that we're dealing with, then that's a problem. I can't respect that, and don't expect our youngsters to neither. Inshallah, afwan.
Barakallah feekum, mashallah, mashallah.